Hello and welcome back to Advice Session, a series here on Anything Goes where you send in your current dilemmas or anything that you want advice on, and I give you my unprofessional advice. And today we're going to be discussing relationship anxiety because, wow, relationships are really anxiety inducing. Even when they're going well, they can cause anxiety sometimes. This is a topic with endless discussion points. So I'm very, very excited to get into it. Let's begin. Someone said, my boyfriend is going to college next year, but I will still be a senior in high school. I'm scared. What do I do? The first step is also the hardest step. And this is a piece of advice that I give for almost all fears in life. Step one, the hardest step, acceptance. Coming to terms with the reality is the crucial first step. Accepting, okay, my boyfriend's going to college, and at best, we stay together through it, and at worst, we don't. That is just the truth. I think more than just accepting the reality of the situation, which is that he's going to college and it could work or it might not work, it's accepting that the worst may happen and that you might have to deal with that. And there's many ways that you can come to accept an uncomfortable reality. Number one, you can make a plan. Okay, what happens if the worst case scenario happens? What am I going to do? What am I going to do to make it as manageable as possible? Come up with a plan. Now, in this scenario, your plan could be, if we end up breaking up, I'll spend more time with my friends. I'll join the chess club at school where there's a lot of cute boys, or like, you know what I mean? Like, you make a plan. That's one way. But you can also remind yourself of this. Okay, this is something I do when I'm really bothered by something that is ultimately not a life or death situation, but still feels really important to me. I will put it into perspective by comparing it to an actual tragedy, which I know sounds unhealthy. Like, that might actually not be great advice. And a therapist might be listening to this thinking Emma is giving the worst advice ever. But that is why I tell you in the beginning of the episode that this advice is unprofessional. When I'm having really bad anxiety about something that does not involve life or death, okay? This being a great example, boyfriend going to college, you still in high school. This is not a life or death situation, okay? Worst case scenario, you break up. You will both survive. Everybody will be okay. I remind myself of that. Like, there's something really comforting about comparing such a painful, but yet not detrimental event to something that actually is detrimental. Like, putting it into perspective and realizing how small it is on the scale of catastrophe can be really helpful as well to ease your mind about, because like, you can get really lost in a fear like this, like, oh no, you know, my boyfriend, he's leaving and I'm going to be here and like, he's going to find somebody else, or like, what's going to happen? If you're fixated on something like that, that can become all that you think about, and it becomes your entire reality, and you can sort of lose touch with the scale of things, right? And if you were to step back and get a little bit of perspective, as I'm describing right now, you'll realize that it's really not that big of a deal. Like, you're going to be okay. Everyone's going to be okay. And that's not to take away from your fear and your pain and your upset, because that is absolutely valid. This is me trying to help you. This is something that I do, you know, to try to put things into perspective. Like, when I was going through my last breakup, there would be moments when I was beside myself. And one of the most helpful tactics I used to calm myself down was to turn that into gratitude that worse things aren't happening. Does that make sense? Like, I took my sadness about the situation and used it to fuel gratitude that everyone's alive, everyone's healthy, everyone's fine. This is not the worst thing that could be happening right now. Far worse things could be happening. And that's incredibly helpful as well. And after you figure out a way to sort of accept the reality of the situation, then I think it's important to communicate with your partner. Be like, hey, this is really bothering me. I'm really worried. Do you even want to stay together? Should we break up? How are we going to make sure that we maintain a healthy level of communication? How are we going to handle it if you find someone new? Like, flesh it all out. Create a plan with your partner. Get on the same page so that when this change does happen, you have everything in place to make this a successful long distance relationship. And guess what? Worst case scenario, it doesn't work out. I can promise you, you will be okay. Relationships that don't work out teach you so much. And honestly, I think a lot of times breakups happen for a reason. Like, it's very rare that a couple breaks up and they shouldn't have. Like, I look back at every single breakup and I have not one regret. I should not be with any of those people. I say that with zero hesitation. Like, I've never been more confident in a statement in my life. Okay. And I can almost guarantee the same thing will happen to you. If this relationship doesn't work out, it was probably not meant to be. And a year after that breakup, you'll probably realize why. If you and this boyfriend are meant to be together, you will make it work in college. You'll find a way. And if it doesn't work out, it just wasn't supposed to. Somebody said, how to manage a long distance relationship. Is it worth it? How do I remain confident when my significant other lives far away? It makes me so nervous. I think long distance relationships can work, but they are really challenging. They are really challenging because I think that when it comes to developing a relationship, a huge part of it is time spent together, doing things together, being under the same roof day after day after day after day. I mean, that develops a relationship like no other thing. And so I think it's really hard to take a relationship to the next level when you're not, when you're not together. However, I think it really depends on what type of long distance relationship you have. Okay. Like, for example, let's say you met someone in your town and you lived in the same town, and for many years you live in the same city. Okay. Then, like 3 years into the relationship, one of the significant others moves to another town, moves away. Now you're long distance. I think because that relationship has a foundation, I think it's far easier to maintain the relationship. Like, you have this foundation that you've built your relationship on. You know each other incredibly well. I think the success rate of that is probably higher. And I think it's worth pushing through because, you made it work for 3 years when you were together. Now you're apart. It's uncomfortable. It sucks. But like, you know what you're going to return to once the long distance phase of the relationship ends. Because you can't do long distance forever. You have to have some sort of plan of eventually ending the long distance, or else I don't think it's worth it. Personally, that's my opinion. But if it's not a means to an end, I would say it's not worth working for. But like, if you've been together for 3 years and then one person moves away and you're long distance for a few years, but you know that you'll be living under the same roof again in a few years, like, I think that's worth fighting for because you've already tried and tested your relationship for multiple years. You know it works. And, you have a little bump in the road, some time apart, but maybe it'll be good for you both. And then you can come back together on the other end and be better than ever. I think that there's a lot of good potential there. And I think that's worth fighting for. Something that's a bit more challenging is eliminating that 3-year relationship before the long distance period and starting off on a long distance period, right? Like, starting out your relationship, not even in the same city. It's pretty challenging because, I don't know, like, the beginning phases of a relationship are usually filled with never wanting to be away from each other, being around each other all the time, doing as much together as possible. And if that gets ripped away from you and you're forced to just sit on FaceTime every night, I mean, that sucks. I've done that before and it's tough. It's really tough. However, I do think that there's some value to it. The value that I found from that was it can be really easy to just jump right into the physical stuff. Like, just get excited about like, oh my God, I have a crush on this person. I love this person. I'm dating this person. I love this person. Oh my God, so cute, so handsome. And then you just like spend all of your time having sex or like laying together. Like, you know what I mean? It's just like nice to do that. And you end up like maybe not talking as much. I mean, you still talk, of course, but like you're not forced to talk all the time. You know, you're watching movies, you're, I don't know, listening to music together. Like you're not talking all the time. When you're long distance in the beginning of a relationship, all you want to do is spend time together, but you don't actually get to spend physical time with each other. So you have to either talk on the phone or talk on FaceTime. And that's actually kind of cool because you can't touch each other. All you can do is talk, and you're forced to actually get to know each other on the deepest level because that's all you can do. So there's something to that. But I think if you don't have a plan to eventually live in the same city, I don't know how long you can make that kind of long distance work. It's pretty tough. Like starting the relationship out, not living in the same city, it's pretty tough. The relationship will truly begin once you live in the same city. And that's not to demean or devalue the relationship that you can form virtually, because I actually do think that there's something really significant and deep there. However, you don't know who you're dating until you live in the same city as them. You just don't. Having an extended period of time where you are seeing your partner every single day, like that teaches you more about your partner than you could ever get from 10 trillion hours on the phone, you know? So here's the deal. Like, do I think long distance is worth it? I think it can be. It's uncomfortable. It's exhausting. It's kind of heartbreaking. But I think if there's a light at the end of the tunnel and you truly love the person enough, I think it's absolutely worth it. But it requires a lot of communication. It requires oftentimes a lot of confrontation, like confronting your partner, being like, hey, you didn't call me all day. What the fuck's going on? Hey, you've been seeming kind of weird on the phone lately. Like, what's going on? There's a lot of confrontation and a lot of communication that you need to participate in to upkeep a long distance relationship that is kind of a chore. You know, it is kind of a bummer, but it's crucial for maintaining a level of confidence and understanding in a long distance relationship. And it tests the trust that you have for that person, which is in some ways a good thing. Like your trust is being tested because you're not seeing your significant other every day. You're not seeing them all day. You have no idea what they're doing. You really have to trust their word. And I actually think that that's a good thing because a lot of times that's when our gut instinct kicks in. Like if we feel like something's off, sometimes we just have trust issues, but a lot of times we're kind of onto something. And I don't know, it's almost like a good way to test your partner. Like, how do you feel when you're apart? Do you trust them? Do you feel like they're communicating enough with you? Do you feel like something sus is going on? If no, this might be an uncomfortable but ultimately helpful catalyst to seeing your partner's true colors.